Hi guys, welcome back to this important video. It sounds funny, it's about paint, but it's actually important. And we're going to discuss why, what type of paint, what type of bins, what kinds of paint to use and which ones to avoid. What about just flipping those lids? Wouldn't the yellow of the underside of these types of totes reflect the sun? Wouldn't aluminum foil work? Is there anything special to do before you paint? Plants need a lot of oxygen to survive. They get their oxygen from the water. It's dissolved, but when the water heats up, the oxygen leaves. Therefore, especially those big plants can't survive. They can't provide that beautiful fruit that you've been waiting for all summer. So watch along. I'll try to give you tips and tricks that might help you and help you avoid mistakes I've made along the way. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video.
Guys, you got to paint your bins white. Otherwise, the sun will radiate onto those bins and they will heat up inside and cook your plants. You don't want to have boiled plants, do you? You got to paint them white. It's just the way it is. I've tried it black and it does work, but wait until you get into July or August and the sun's beating on them. I personally think it's better to paint the lids white as well. I flipped a couple lids here and I'm not real happy with the yellow. I think the yellow gets warm too. It's still early June, but I'm debating if I should flip these back over where they're painted white or go ahead and paint the back sides white like I've done over here, even in the shade. Being white is an advantage. These are about to be put in operation. These are white, but let me show you. This lid I'm getting away with, but when it's directly in the sun, this bin here had a lot of sun, and the lid was flipped over to the yellow side. And let me show you what happened. Frog pond, algae. It's only early June, so I'm afraid if I don't paint the lids white on the back side, and I do flip them over, and the underside remains yellow, this is what I'm going to get if the bins are getting quite a bit of sun. So take my advice and paint your bins white. This one's getting away with it because there's a little bit of shade here from this tree, but my long-term project will be to paint the undersides white as well. Now, maybe even more important are to paint these big totes that can only handle one plant at a time, but they're huge compared to those other 27-gallon bins. These are the trash can bins, much larger. Those definitely are in the direct sun. They get no shade over here. So you can imagine how important it is to paint these white. These came as black bins or trash cans, so they would have never been able to have plants survive the summer. So you can see underneath here, they're really black bins inside. That's okay if the black's on the inside. Actually, you want to find totes that are black or trash cans that are black so that you can paint white over the black. Therefore, the sun does bounce off the white and reflects. It's still dark enough in the tanks that the light can't get through into the tank itself. So you want a black tank to start with, and then you want to take white paint and slather it all over there real thick. You can see here one of the problems. I used a latex type paint here, and look what's happening. It's peeling. And a couple years ago, or was it last year, I can't remember, I had a gallon of it, and I put it all over several of these bins, and it all peeled off. It was a total waste of time. So I would recommend do not get latex paint, whatever you do. Now, some latex paint sticks a little better. I think I sanded these down vigorously by hand with some sandpaper, and that's why these are still kind of sticking on here. But if you can go with an acrylic or a non-latex based paint, you're way better off. So please don't use latex paint. This stuff actually did stay on halfway decent, even though it's a latex based paint. But again, if you're able to get a non-latex based paint, I think that's the way to go. Here's an example of an acrylic paint. It worked really well. It's exterior, as you see. Brilliant white, so it really reflects well. And here's another one. This is a enamel type paint. Now, both of these I got dirt cheap at a reuse store. So that's where I suggest you go looking if you can. One thing about these paints are that they stick to your paintbrush pretty vigorously, so don't use your best paintbrush. You might not be able to get it out like you would a water-based paint. Latex paints you can almost rinse in a bucket and get it out by hand. This stuff sticks like glue. I'm gonna look and see if there's anything that really gets it out. Paint thinner probably, or acetone, or something like that might be effective at saving your brushes if you're going to use this paint. But if you're not sure, just use an old junker brush that you've used for something else before that's on the out. Okay, before you go to all the trouble to paint the bins, you might want to roughen them up a bit. I used this last time, just a wire type of brush that goes onto a drill bit. You can just slide it in there and tighten it down, and then you don't have to do all the manual labor you would with sandpaper or sanding blocks. I found this was just the easier way to do it. Here's another option. Get something kind of thick and coarse, and but if you know, this might save you some time. I've used sandpaper. It works too, but boy, your fingers really take a beating going back and forth with that in your hand. Yeah, like I said, enamel paint or acrylic paint, whatever. I'm not sure they're any different really, or some kind of Rust-Oleum white paint. This is a clear top coat, but you get the idea. Spray paint's real easy. The only thing with spray paint, you got to be out of the wind, and otherwise you'll lose half of it. It'll never get on the bins. One of my favorite ideas in the future might be to make my own barium type paint. There's a guy on the internet, I think his channel is Nighthawk, and he shows how to make a reflective paint that actually cools, because it reflects some of the I think it's infrared radiation back into space. A really unique type paint. I've tried to put silver aluminum foil type products over the tops, but remember the metal gets hot, so the aluminum gets hot, and if it touches anything, if there's an air gap, it's fine, but if it touches the top of the tanks, it's just going to make it worse. So I wouldn't recommend aluminum type products unless there's some kind of bubble wrap or air gap that's preventing the metal from actually touching the tanks themselves. I mean, people have used things like this kind of wrap here, or you know, thicker paddings with aluminum. Again, I think you can maybe get away with it, but if that metal heats up and then touches the tank, it's going to transfer that metal, that heat right out into the tank. So you don't want the heat to be transferred from the metal to the tank. So therefore, I would stay away from the metal unless you really have a good air gap and there's no way that metal is touching the lid. Look at this tomato, he's going good. But I've had these in various bins before, and you can see, look at those air roots on top and the nice tap roots below. This tomato here. So again, we don't want to have our tanks in the direct sun cooking all day unless they're brilliant white or some kind of white reflective paint. Otherwise, honestly, come July, August, you're just going to get root rot. It's just going to be too hot. When the water temperature rises, the oxygen leaves the water much easier, and the dissolved oxygen, which is so critical for those roots, the dissolved oxygen in the water drops, and that's the last thing you want. You need black tanks inside. See how those are black here's a good picture showing it. That's going to stop the light, but then you got to get your white paint on there as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're not going to have success in the heat of the summer. All right, just wanted to kind of fill you in on one of those critical tips. I know it seems silly doing a whole video on white paint, but it is a very important concept that I hope it helps someone out there prevent some of the loss of plants that I've had in the past by ignoring that concept. Okay, have a great day, and thanks again for watching and subscribing.